Welcome everyone to the Gary Neville podcast. Everybody's a bit stunned here at the Etihad. Manchester United they did win, Gary, didn't they?
They did.
They did.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, make some sense of it if you can.
Difficult to. I mean, sometimes some things happen in football. I mean, it was a really poor game, wasn't it? Just quality. Both teams lacking in confidence and belief and not playing anywhere near their levels. City, obviously, in particular, just, I mean, what the hell? I mean, 1 win in 11 matches, 8 defeats. It's unbelievable watching with City. And from Manchester United winning, just one man. I mean, ultimately, there were a couple of other decent performances. I thought actually Maguire, De Ligt and Martinez did okay as a back three. I think that they were quite solid. But there was nothing really in front of that other than one boy, Amad Diallo, or you called it the Diallo Derby, which is a beautiful line because, and I called it sort of probably 30 minutes, maybe in the first half. And he was the player we featured before the game. He's the only player. Mazraoui actually, I think, shows a little bit of spirit in his game, but he's the only player that's playing anything like with a freedom and energy and enthusiasm, a tenacity and something of a belief that represents what you'd expect in a Premier League football player playing for the club. The rest of them really are struggling, confidence-wise, quality-wise. The club's struggling on and off the pitch at this moment in time, but this kid is, a lot of them can hide behind the excuses, oh, it's difficult time, cultural problems. We've all said the things over the last 10 years, poor recruitment. But when you play football like you're a kid, and he's never stopped thinking of football like he's playing on the street, like he's playing in, Wayne Rooney was exactly the same. They're street football players, and they believe they should get it and beat men and attack men and take the ball and take risks. And he did all the way through the game. It was always going to come down that far side. I mean, it came on this near side. He set up the penalty by hard work, pressing, closing down, and then obviously the winner, that will live with him forever. It's a magical moment for him. It really is. And I said at the end of the game, I couldn't say United deserved to win the game. I couldn't say City deserved to win the game. A draw may have been fair because it was average. It was woeful at times. But Amad Diallo deserved to win the game because he was the one player on the pitch who looked like something.
And those of us who aren't partisan at all and just love watching football, you hope that he can retain that innocent love for the game, don't you? Because we began, and we don't need to go here now, we've got a match to talk about, but we began the afternoon dealing with Marcus Rashford, who was once that person. Innocent and carefree and scoring beautifully. And it's Amad's turn to have that moment, and you just wish for him that he can keep it for life.
I'm not going all philosophical, but one of my favourite lines in a song is actually one of an Oasis lines in a song which says, whilst we're living, the dreams we have as children fade away. And I always remind myself of that song to think, never become cynical, never become unexcited by what you're doing. It's a privilege to be doing a Premier League game. It's a privilege to play for Manchester United. It looks like a chore sometimes out there for some of the players. We'll come on to Garnacho and Rashford. They've been left out today. A spectacularly bold call by Ruben Amorim that would have leaves big question marks over those two and what's happened. But you have to, the passion to play football and the spirit and the work ethic, it will always, always trump talent. It really will. Doesn't matter if you've got more talent. If you've got someone who's fighting for every single ball like their life depends upon it, and the way in which even Amad closes people down to win the ball back and harass and hustle, there's a desperation to his game to do everything he possibly can. And it's obvious you can't kid football fans, you can't kid commentators or co-commentators. We can all see it with our own eyes. And at the end, when he wins the game, he's kissing his badge and he throws his shirt into the crowd. All that is because it comes from the heart, it comes from a soul. It's a feeling playing football. Of course you've got to play with your head. Of course you've got to learn tactics. Of course you've got to do all those things. But the very basics of the game are about endeavour and spirit and taking risks and doing things that you would as a kid, and that can never leave you. And it's left a lot of these Manchester United players, but it's not left him. And even in difficult times, it proves that you don't have to be an experienced player to play well in a difficult time. He's a young player, he's 22 years of age, and an absolute joy and a shining light today for Manchester United. He really was.
So what, obviously facile, such a basic question with such a big answer, but what can this do for Manchester United?
They were breaking every single record, or are breaking every single record in the wrong direction. 42% of the goals conceded from corners, losing 15 matches away from home against the top 6. Lowest points tally in Premier League history. Ruben Amorim, the manager, with the least points tally, I think, after 4 games. All those things are just negative stats. What that can do to win a game, to win here. I mean, I know they're in a bad run, but to win here takes something. And for Ruben Amorim, it's huge. And for the players, it must give them a huge boost. They've got a massive game on Thursday night against Tottenham in the Carabao Cup. But they'll go into that game now. I'm just looking at Ruben Amorim here. He's got that little bit of bounce back in his face. It's obviously a tough job being a football manager, and he's taken on one of the biggest jobs in the world. And it's been a sobering start, really, because he's realised and recognised the size of the task. I think probably those United fans and us who have been watching this club for 10 years recognised it already. But he came in with great enthusiasm, maybe in the back of his mind thinking, yeah, it's definitely going to be tough, but I'm hoping to see a bounce from these players. And he's not seen it until now, and that's a big break, because we've not seen that, Peter. I mean, we've been coming here now under Pep Guardiola for 7, 8, 9 seasons, however long it's been, and it's been methodical. It's been at times mundane, because it's been so simple for Manchester City, and they've been the ones who've always won in the last minute, and it's not quite happening for them at this moment in time. But for Ruben Amorim, it's a huge moment. It really is. And for those United fans that are still locked in that far corner, we saw their faces, didn't we, with about 5 minutes to go, and they were sort of like helpless. I mean, there was no way I thought United would get back in that game. But it's a big boost, huge boost, and should give them a lot of confidence. And confidence is obviously something that can't be discounted.
Not sure they are locked in. I think they just don't want to go. So, anyway, that's between them and the stewards. From Manchester City's perspective, I just wonder, you must have had moments like this in your career, I suppose. There's a team there full of absolute winners, brilliant footballers who've won prize after prize after prize, and we're all bamboozled about where it's going as a team. Is it incumbent on them, when they've done it so often and proved themselves all the time, to go and prove themselves again? Is that what it needs? Or
look, Pep Guardiola has built 2 teams here already that have been very successful, and he's going to have to go and build a 3rd one. And he'll have that in his mind already. You know, all I can do is relate back to my own experiences at Manchester United, where I was part of 4 teams over a 18, 19-year period. And there was a period whereby we found it really difficult. I mean, Manchester City, by the way, the current champions, and they could still win the championship this year. I don't think it'll be a title this year. I don't think they will, but they could. But we went through a period where there was a reconstruction, a little mini rebuild. It took 2 or 3 years to win the title again. Now, Pep Guardiola's not even in that position at this current point. But to build teams, there comes to a point whereby, that conveyor belt of players, and they grow old together, and maybe they've not just replenished enough at this end, and they've not maybe just replaced the quality. You think of the likes of Mahrez and Sterling at the peak. The wide players that we're looking at out there aren't the same quality. Some of the players that are the quality have got older. They've had injuries. This is not a time, I don't think, for anybody with knowledge of the game to stick the knife into Manchester City or Pep Guardiola. This is not a time to do that. This is a time to recognise that these players have run a million miles together over many, many years, and they've just hit a wall. They've hit a wall with their manager all at once. It happened at United in a number of seasons over a 20-year period where we didn't win for 1 or 2 seasons, and Pep Guardiola's only never won here for 1 season. So it's, Jurgen Klopp's season and then the Leicester one in the first year. So he's only ever had 1 season without the title. This may be another one here. So these are serial winners. This is one of the greatest managers of all time. They've played unbelievably consistent, been reliable, everything you'd want in a football team, and these players have delivered. They will always be winners. So let's just say that at the very start of it. But they've all come to a point in their journey together whereby something needs to change, and they need a rest. I thought it would come last year. I've said this in the last few weeks. I thought after the treble, there would be a dip, a natural dip. Not a dip in their want to win, their will to win. Just, you can't keep going. You just cannot keep going. You need to somehow have a break. They're playing in Champions League games. They're playing in FA Cup finals, Carabao Cup finals, winning leagues. They've gone playing for their countries every single month nearly. They're then going playing in most summers and only getting 3 weeks break. And these players have been together so long on that journey, and they just come to the end of that journey as a group. 1 or 2 of them, 3 of them may have to leave. 3 or 4 will have to come in, and you'll see a different Manchester City through those changes. It's not a massive rebuild, by the way. It's just getting the players fit and getting that sort of, if you like, that sort of adaptation to the squad. So, look, this is a time to say well done for what you've achieved over the last few years, because this is not them. We know that 1 in 11's not them. They've proven that to us over a period of 4, 5, 6 seasons. This is just something that happens when you've just gone too far together and you've just basically hit a wall.
So I'm interested. I think fans would be. We all understand January's coming. There could be moves in, there could be moves out. We'll see. That story will be told. But what happens this week? What can he say to them now as we're talking?
Guardiola?
Yeah, or Monday morning or Tuesday when they're next together.
He's still been very positive about them after every match, and I think he'll be positive again tonight and say he's proud of his players. He'll know they're nowhere near the level. I mean, he's playing Nunez at left back, who's done a half-decent job up until the last 5 minutes. He's not got a midfield of any note. The wide players are not as good as they were, and the rest of them are below par in form. And the confidence and vulnerability is real. And the anxiety in the stadium, Peter, we could sense it after 10 minutes, couldn't we? You know, they've now got to a point whereby there's a lack of, trust is the wrong word, but they know the players are not in that moment of good form and good spirit and good energy, so that it just transmits everywhere, and it's a vicious circle, unfortunately. It's difficult to come out of it, actually, in a moment. It is very difficult to come out of it. Micah made a statement before the game today that they need a statement win. That was probably always going to be unlikely. They just needed to win and get to within 6 points to Liverpool, and that made me think, oh, hang on a second, something could happen here. But no, I mean, what can he say to them? Remind them of what they are, remind them of what they've done, remind them of what they've achieved, remind them that this moment was probably always going to come in your life. Did you expect every day to be a good day? Did you expect every month? Did you not expect to have a bad run at some point in your life? Did you not expect to lose more games than you have done before? It's football, it's sport. So, you know, remind yourself of perspective of what you've achieved together and how far you've run together, and how many medals you've got on the table and how much joy you've given to these City fans in this stadium. And then say, okay, how do we reset? Come on, what do we do? Try little tricks. Give them 2 days off. Maybe don't give them days off. Maybe give them a holiday. Maybe don't give them. I don't know what it is. All those things that managers do when you're in a really bad run. Change the time of training. Whatever the things are. Maybe Pep doesn't turn up for 2 days and leaves him with his coaches so that they don't hear his voice. I don't know. There's maybe things, or he might just do exactly the same things as he has done before and trust the process. But you know, there's 2 ways of looking at it. Remain exactly as you are and always have been and trust that it'll come back, or maybe try and change things up a little bit. I don't know which one he'll go down the route of, but I'm sure he'll remind them and put everything into perspective. You know, you are winners. You know, today, you're obviously losing football matches, but let's be clear, you have proven that you are title winners. Win 4 in a row. You are no mugs to win 4 titles. They have gone again and again and again and again and again. And not many teams in history have been able to do that in terms of go again and win 3 titles. No one's won 4. So, no, remind them of what they are and keep spirits as high. This is not a time to weigh into them and sort of have a go. It's not. You know, he's got to try and remind them of how good they've been, really, and sort of tap into something that hope it brings them back.
Yeah. So let's finish on United, because as it turns out, it is United's day, and we must finish positively on United. But before then, I think people would be interested in your reaction when you saw a team sheet without Marcus Rashford and without Alejandro Garnacho.
Yeah. They've both been poor on the pitch. We know that. That's a fact. And he said before the game, I can't remember what the words were. He said, did he say engaging with the group? I wrote it down. Give me 1 second. I don't want to misquote the manager. Engagement with teammates. The selection issue was down to performance and engagement with teammates. I can assume what that means. But if they're engagement with their teammates, you can play badly. We know they've played badly. We've watched them in the last few weeks. They've been appalling. But I don't know what he means by that, and I think that he'll get pressed harder on that. Patrick Davison, before the game, pressed him on it. I said, what do you mean by engagement with teammates? And he sort of widened the answer a little bit. But that means if they've not been good in the group, that's why they're not here today. I don't think they both wouldn't be here based upon how they've played, because there are other players who've been poor and who are here. So I don't know what that meant. It was quite cryptic from Ruben Amorim, but what he's done is made a bold call. But what he has to do is shake this club to its core. I mean, let's be clear, I'm a United fan tonight and I've got a smile on my face because something's happened that I never expected. I had no faith or trust in these players to come here today and win, even as bad as City are. But that kid has lit my weekend up. Honestly, he absolutely has. But he has to, even out of tonight, make even more bold decisions, because there are a lot of players in that squad who are not good enough to get Ruben Amorim where he wants to be and keep him in a job. Simple as that. Don't think for 1 second over the next few years that the players that have won you this game today are going to be able to win you games and get you to where you need to be to keep you in a job, because the others in the past have been conned by finishing second, winning a FA Cup, and they've lost the jobs eventually. What he needs to do is get a group of players who can fit with his idea. We know his idea. We've seen that now. It's the 3-4-3. He plays the two narrow off the striker. He plays the two in midfield sitting, and he plays the two wing-backs with the three at the back. The three at the back split, two split, and the one goes sort of forward into midfield. He plays out through an angle. We can see his idea of what he wants to do. But some players are finding it okay, and some players are struggling with it. He needs to make sure he's brutal with it, really brutal. And he's been brutal today, by the way. I mean, the easy thing to do for Ruben Amorim would just be to bring Garnacho and Rashford and leave them on the bench and not let the press ask questions. That's the simple thing to do. He's taken the real difficult choice, which has paid off because he's won. He's won the game, and those two are obviously sat at home, likely to have trained this morning probably, knowing him. What you do when you really want to punish players is bring him in on the day of the game. So if they've trained this morning, and then they've got to come in tomorrow ahead of the game on Thursday, he may just give them a glimmer and bring them back into the squad on Thursday. But I think he'll double down now, Ruben Amorim, and realise spirit, togetherness, team ethic is more important than anybody with talent. The reason that I stayed at that club for 19 years and that John O'Shea stayed for a long time, and Nicky Butt and Paul Scholes, the incredible ability, and Ryan Giggs and people like that, Wes Brown, Tom Cleverley, Darren Fletcher. The reason we stayed at the club for such a long time, and other players that maybe weren't the world class in their positions, was because of a spirit and an ethos. Honestly, you need everybody every day to run as hard as they possibly can and do everything that they can. That's what Manchester City have done for the last 4 or 5 years. So you put quality into that as well. But the work ethic's been poor from Garnacho and Rashford. We've watched them in those two wide positions for 2-3 seasons, not running back, thinking that they can play the game without putting the work in. And Amorim has said, no, I'm not accepting it. And I've got no sympathy, really, because they're both incredibly talented players. And I hope they were watching at home today, watching Ahmad play football and thinking, right, that kid's shown what you can do, mixing talent with work ethic, and you get performance and you get the rewards for it as well. And them two at home are sat there today, fantastic players, unbelievable talents, can have great careers and still can, but you've got to start making great choices. You've got to start waking up in the morning and thinking that, am I going to work as hard as I possibly can every single minute of every day and do everything perfectly? Everything I eat, every time I sleep, every time I go and do a stretch, every time I lift a weight, every time I kick a football has got to be to your absolute maximum, to a point whereby you're absolutely obsessive. It's non-stop. Unfortunately, it's tough. It's hard work. You've got to repeat that every day, by the way, for 20 years. And that's when you become a great player. And there are players out on the pitch for City that we're watching, for Liverpool, for other clubs that have been great players that have proven it. They've got to go and do that. And it's a wake-up call for them both. It's a wake-up call. And I'm delighted for the kid who's shown the spirit, the fight, the tenacity, the courage, the risk, the edge in his game. He's got the rewards, and it's not, life pays you back for what you put in. Simple as that. And those two lads at home today are not doing everything they can to be the very best that they can. And I hope that they can start doing that so they can be great players for United, because they've got great ability.
I don't think we can add to that. It's a great summary, Gary. Thank you. Unless you have something more you'd like to say.
No, I'm just gonna have a Christmas pint, Peter.
You do that. Do that.
Manchester tonight is red.
Just make sure you pick your pub very carefully.
I know. To be fair, I want to pick the one what they're in. Brilliant. Thanks,
Gary.
Peter.
Cheers.
Thank you.